really appreciate everyone for coming tonight. I'm Dr. Rhonda Collier, professor in the English department. I'm trying to stop just a little bit until their boss gets here. Because I really want to say that to the words as well. So I'll let the Vanderbilt people introduce themselves while we wait for their boss to get here. So just tell us who you are, what you do at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Collier. I'm Claire Gonzalez. I am Outreach Coordinator at the Center for Latin American Studies at Vanderbilt. We are, first of all, thrilled to be here. It's a real honor for us. We have spent really wonderful moments here, and there are several people in this room to thank for that. But one of the main people is Dr. Collier, who has been a wonderful host. Dr. Lisa Beth Hill, Dr. Dana Chandler, all these people have really made our 2 visits here quite memorable. And so we are just to give you a very short idea of what we do, we're a National Resource Center on Latin America, and we have a grant from the Department of Education to do lots of things on Latin America, so to increase education on Latin America, thus the film on Brazil. And in just a few moments, the director of our center, who's Dr. Jane Landers, will be here. She also is very honored to be here and will be following shortly. And so she was on the dissertation committee of Dr. Collier a few years ago, and that's how this collaboration got started. And so, again, thank you all in many different ways for being wonderful hosts. I do not travel alone, however, with a wonderful group of people from Vanderbilt. And so, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Heather McRae. I'm a PhD candidate in Spanish and Portuguese for the Department of Spanish and Portuguese.
Can you tell us about your research a little bit? You work with Fitz, who was my director.
I do. I work with Professor Fitz, Professor Luis, other professors in the Spanish and Portuguese department in Latin American Studies. And my focus is Afro-Latino literature and also comparative studies. And I work with a poet, some of you guys may know Jean Toomer. And I'm also doing comparative studies with Jean Toomer, a Brazilian poet, Slácio Haddad, and a Cuban poet, Regina Pedro.
I am Alma Paz San Miguel. I am the administrative assistant for the Center for Latin American Studies, and I'm very pleased to be here for this opportunity. Thank you very much for opening your doors to us.
I'm Sonia Diaz. I'm Brazilian. I'm a Humphrey Fellow at Vanderbilt University, and I'm doing my internship at the Center for Latin America, and I'm very, very honored to be here. It was, I think it's an amazing gift that they bring here.
Você é de qual parte do Brasil?
I am from São Paulo.
Yay! That's where I studied.
Big city. Almost 20 million people. And there I work with education and racial inequality in education. This is my passion.
Do you know a little bit about Rebosa? He's a famous black scientist from Brazil. Rebosa?
Rebosas, yes. His has a quite interesting story. He is black man, he and his brother. During almost the slavery time, they studied engineer, and they did very important buildings and constructions in Rio de Janeiro, and almost some important buildings in São Paulo that are some monastery and other very important buildings. So we are very proud of them, but it's interesting that many people, even in Brazil, they don't know they are black.
Yes, this is a little known black history fact in Brazil that one of the most important Brazilian scientists during the history in the 19th century, he was building buildings and roads during slavery. And Brazil had the longest history of slavery in the Americas, ending in 1888.
Yes, you have the last one.
Tuskegee founded in 1881, and Africans in Brazil were still enslaved. And you have a black man, a scientist, and blacks in Brazil do not know about Rebosa. And the longest street in Sao Paulo, on Dia More, taking the bus every day, and no one on the bus, black, darker than me, no one on that bus knew that the street that they were on was named after the most famous black scientist. Muy triste.
And one thing that I was thinking today that was, for me, could be a dream, is that we don't have any black universities in Brazil. And for me, it's really impressive, all the things that you did, how important are the history that you have. And so I wonder if our black students maybe could be some exchange, and I know, because it's really opened our new window that we can't imagine it. So many black students together in a college doing so amazing
they
work.
want it. Every time I go to Brazil, they say Tuskegee. They can't pronounce Tuskegee. They say Tuskegee. And they say Booker T. And they know in Brazil about Booker T. Washington. They say Booker T. And they know about Booker T. Washington in Brazil. Booker T. global, always global. He is known in Brazil.
Yes. We know, and I think it would be
Chegou! The boss has arrived.
Come on, pursue the band, please.
Man, really quickly to our next visitor.
And that's actually a hard act to follow. So, my name is Max Pendergraft. I'm a master's student at Vanderbilt University. I study the history of Brazil. I'm looking to go on and do a PhD in history. And actually, I did a semester at the University of Sao Paulo and took the bus on the Bustos Avenue. And I had no idea about this history, so thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
It's great to be here. It really is a lovely campus, and the tour this afternoon was excellent.
If you travel, students, and you're broke, take the bus and you will learn so much. Our people have taken buses for years.
I'm Todd Hughes. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology at the Center for Second Language Studies at Vanderbilt University, and I teach Spanish here. I am honored to be here. This is my second trip, and I really enjoy it.
I am originally from Ethiopia. I am Assistant Director of Instructional Technology at the Vanderbilt Center for Second Language Studies. And I am honored to be here, and I wanted to cry looking at all this what's been happening here, and I'm so impressed.
Bang, 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 bang. Bang, bang, that means you're welcome. Welcome.
I'm Jane Landers. I'm a longtime friend of Rhonda Collier's. I'm so pleased that she has put this program together with Claire and Provost Williams. I'd like to thank you for having us all here. We had a great tour this afternoon, and we're going to plan on some future programming together, maybe some study abroad programming if possible. Dr. Collier and I talked about that.
That means please,
Yes, my name is Frank Robinson, and I'm the Associate Director of the Center for Latin American Studies at Vanderbilt University. I'm a historian. I work both on Spanish America. This past year I taught a course on Introduction to Brazil, which is the beginning of our minor in Brazilian Studies. It truly is a pleasure for me to be back. Years ago, I studied at Auburn University, I taught at Auburn University. I had the pleasure over a decade and a half ago to visit this campus, and it's just really a delight to be back here.
Well, Dr. Williams has agreed to give you all a formal welcome, and just before I sit down, I am an English professor. I like to talk a lot. For different language that I speak, I like to talk in all of them. Just wanted to have Professor Chandler stand up, and Dr. Hill stand up, and Professor Roberts stand up. There's a lot of collaborators standing up in the history department, archives. I don't know, the whole room could stand up. My students, where are you? But I'm probably leaving out a lot of people. Dr. Hooks, Macon County Schools, where are you? The Macon County Schools are here. Where are the Macon County School teachers? Stand up. We'll see you tomorrow. So teaching in the Macon County Schools, they flag cake. That's one of Dr. Cook's talents. Actually, she's my godmother too. So blood, sweat, and tears. Remember the story, Sweat, Darnell Hurston? We know about that, right? So just a lot of love in this room, the community, Dean Burge, engineering. Everyone knows that's my heart. PS and Master's in Engineering, so anything science I always believe in. And then of course, Provost Moons, thank you for believing in the dream. But Dana and Lisa, my partners in crime, right? So just thanks everyone for your support, and I'm going to give it over to Dr. Williams. And thanks Jane and Vanderbilt. This is a great, great film. There's some tense moments, but that's what change is all about. Be more. And just as a little gift to Professor Chandler, open it at home.
Thank you.
Vanderbilt folks, come sit in the front. Shane, sit near me, where are you?
Well, I guess are seated. On behalf of the university, I'd like to offer an official welcome. Dr. Collier, I will admit that the context of the welcome is somewhat atypical, but that's wonderful. That is to say, in a typical vernacular, in a very stoic fashion, you would already be seated, there would be no commentary, and I would make comments, and then you would process. But I think I understand why. To all of you, on behalf of President Rochelle, all of the entire Tuskegee University community, I sincerely express appreciation for your attendance. To Dr. Collier, starting last year, I became acquainted with your center and her interest in study in Brazil. As you and I have an understanding, that relationship will be enriched over time. Also, interestingly, you were making comments about the possibility of an exchange program with students in Brazil. President Rochon actually visited several campuses in Brazil, primarily focused on engineering, material science and engineering. And I think there is at least the preliminary outlines of an agreement. I suspect you primarily focus on research, but I think it would be very easy for us to embellish it and actually have a bona fide exchange, at least based on the comments that you made. I'm interested in it. So, Dr. Collier, back to the gym. Not only the visitors from the center, but I also would like to particularly express particular welcome to all of the other individuals from the Macon County School System, the attendees in general. This is really wonderful to see just a spirit of gathering. I'll end my comments so that you can actually address the program. Okay, you're welcome, and I'm sure we'll interact further. And I'm glad, contrary to what I told you by email, I was actually able to manage to be here. We talked earlier, and I said no. However, I will not be able to stick to the impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for having us here. My name is John Maddox. I'm a PhD student in Spanish and Portuguese at Vanderbilt University, and I'm really thrilled to be here with you all. This is an amazing film. I've seen it several times, and I always react to it very strongly because we're seeing a lot of suffering. We're seeing a lot of problems that need solutions. And I think that our initial reaction when we see all this pain and all this injustice and all these terrible things is we ask, well, how can I help? which is an expected reaction, it's an understandable reaction, it's a human reaction because we're able to empathize with these people. But the question that I want to pose to you all, and what I would love to hear from you all, is how Afro-Hagi can help us. What are they doing that we can learn from? And I think that's something that we need to keep asking as we consider learning about Brazil and as we consider learning about some of the themes that we see in the film is what can we learn from Afro-Hagi? What do they tell us about the arts? What do they tell us about social injustice? What do they tell us about race? What do they tell us about ways that we can see problems and seek solutions in a creative way?
I'm Jane Landers. I'm sorry that I arrived late. I did want to say I'm the director of the Center for Latin American Studies, and so that's one of the reasons we all come together as a group here.
She was my professor.
Long time ago, I met my friend, his mother. I just wanted to say my role really is an historian of Latin America, and I study Africans in Latin America almost anywhere they went. But of course, Brazil and Cuba are two of the places that had the oldest and longest history of the slave trade and the slavery. And we're coming back to a period now where many of the problems that you just saw in the film are being renewed because we're coming up to the Olympics and the World Cup in Brazil. And so there's been a new movement for the police to go into the favelas and clean out the favelas with violence if necessary. So we haven't seen the end of these problems yet, despite all of his wonderful efforts, and we all need to keep an eye out on what's going on currently. But I was also struck as an historian about the strength we see in that community that was so impoverished and so without any kind of resources. And it reminds me of the periods I studied in the slave trade era, about how communities came together with very little, how leaders rose up from the communities and helped people find some solutions to terrible problems. So we do get, as John said, a lot of lessons out of this film, but I think we haven't overcome totally these problems either in Brazil or many other places that we studied together. So there's some history to be seen here, and there's some concerns of the present day that we need to think about as well.
Hi again, and have already introduced myself earlier. And what I take from the film, like John said, I think that no one can leave and say they didn't get some sort of reaction from the film. It's a very strong film. But two of the things that I definitely take with me is the resistance that this the Afro-Reagan movement has. And their sense of survival in a community where if they didn't decide to do this, what's the other option? And we know that the other option was, or is, drug trafficking, which in essence, death. And there's no other option. So I think that's extremely profound. I also think that the meaningful representation of art, how they use Afro-Reagan, or Reagan with the Afro-Brazilian music and dance, and they sort of created this new genre of music, is extremely artistic. And I think that brings culture to the community where they thought they didn't have culture, that all they had was violence. So I think that was extremely important.
I'm Sonia Diaz from Brazil. In Brazil, I work in an NGO, and one of our projects is Work for Best Practices. And Afro-Hagi won this prize in the early beginning of 2001, I think. And I think it was a gift award that is also from UNICEF. It's helped them to develop their work. And I also think that it's important because Afro-Hagi started in a moment that our social movement was very strong. And there are many others low-profit organizations that they work with low-income communities, and they have a very huge importance in education of our children, because our education, public education system, we have many issues with private.
You never forget it.
You're not going to do it everything.
Yes. Yeah. How's that?
Embarrassed. And you know, and I know a lot of.
Do both full time?